Chapter 81. Master and Disciple both promoted. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. Chapter 23. Master and Disciple both promoted for the first time, the flying bird technique, which used to look as unsightly as a chicken flapping its wings, revealed its true form in front of Li Hao. He rose into the air and spread his arms. Yuan Shua had discovered the other party's spying. He was furious. The anger that he had accumulated over the years surged out at this moment. He transformed into a bird and spread his arms, leaping directly into the air. His arms were waving. His movements might not be extremely beautiful, but his speed was shockingly fast. In an instant, Yuan Shua had leaped 100 meters. He landed on the ground, lightly tapped it, and once again soared into the air. He couldn't leap in the air, but his jumping ability was amazing. In an instant, he shot out another 100 meters. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed 200 to 300 meters. Li Hao and the other two superpowers didn't even have time to react. Hurry up. It was extremely fast. Yuan Shua, who had mastered the five birds technique, was almost omnipotent. The next moment, it jumped up again, almost level with the building, at least 30 meters high. On the building, the man and woman's faces changed. Elder Yuan. Hu Hao hurriedly said. Roar. The roar of a tiger suppressed everything. Boom. Ringing in his ears. Hu Hao's 7 orifices were bleeding, and he seemed to have gone deaf. At this moment, a mysterious energy gushed out, and he couldn't bother to explain. As for that woman, her third eye had opened, and it seemed like she had already used up a large amount of mysterious energy. Moreover, he was young and inexperienced. At this moment, his third eye was in great pain. Before he could react or even close his eyes, all 3 eyes saw a fist. Peeking at my secret technique, you're so bold. Kill. Killing intent, blood chi. The woman's 3 eyes were filled with blood at the same time. Boom. The next second, a loud noise was heard. Yuan Shua threw a punch, and his bones and tendons rang together like thunder, exploding the void. Ah! A sharp cry rang out, and the woman's 3 eyes bled at the same time. A large amount of mysterious energy seeped out. A small punishment is a big warning. Since this is your first offense, I'll spare your life. Bang! Bang! There was another loud bang, mixed with the sound of the air exploding. Yuan Shua's leg lashed out and directly sent the woman flying in the air, mixed with the sound of bones breaking. Elder Yuan, it's a misunderstanding. At this moment, Hu Hao leaped into the air with a light sword in his hand. He was sweating profusely, but he didn't dare to make a move. He could only shout and grab the woman who was flying away. He retreated a few steps in the air before he could stabilize his body. In his arms, the woman was unconscious, and blood was constantly spurting out of her mouth. Yuan Shua's eyes were cold as he landed on the ground, leaving a deep gully. Misunderstanding. Then let's just treat it as a misunderstanding. If you're not convinced, then ask your superior to come to me. The aged Yuan Shua's aura gradually weakened, and some blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He sneered, go back and tell them that I, Yuan Shua, may be old, but I don't even have 1/10 of my strength left. I'm not someone you little things can insult. The rise of superpowers and the fall of martial masters. I, Yuan Shua, don't mind telling you that when a martial master is angry, his blood will also be spilled. I don't dare. Hu Hao also landed on the ground with the woman. His face was full of shock, and he quickly exhaled and said, Elder Yuan, it's really a misunderstanding. This is Li Meng's first time on a field mission and he doesn't know his place. Our purpose here is to protect Elder Yuan. It just so happens that Elder Yuan is covering the courtyard. Li Meng was worried about Elder Yuan's safety, so he opened his eyes of truth. Then let's just treat it as a misunderstanding. It doesn't matter if it's a misunderstanding or if you're trying to spy on us, the rules of a martial master are here. Yuan Shua said calmly. The secret technique of 5 birds, those who are not from my sect are not to peep at it. With that, Yuan Shua suddenly clutched his heart and glanced at Hu Hao. He slowly turned around and walked back to his small courtyard. His voice was a little lonely. I don't dare to kill anymore. If it was 20 years ago. No, 3 years ago, if this girl dared to peep on my martial arts teachings, I would kill her even if she was a night watcher. I'm old and crippled. There was an indescribable sadness and helplessness. At this moment, the woman was also awake. She spat out another mouthful of blood when she heard this, but she didn't dare to make a sound. Yuan Shua left in a daze. A grand master of his generation seemed to have really aged at this moment. I held my last breath and used it on you. I wanted to kill an old enemy. What a pity. Yuan Shua's dejected voice could be heard once more. Hu Hao's expression changed. Yuan Shua. Was his time coming to an end? He had been seriously injured a few years ago, and today's outburst was indeed powerful. He had lost both qi and blood, and if his injuries acted up again, he would die. Hu Hao's forehead was covered in sweat. It was not until Yuan Shua had disappeared that he looked at the woman. His voice was low and cold. We're in big trouble. He almost killed me. The woman was a little angry. Hu Hao gritted his teeth and said coldly, we're in big trouble. It's not that you almost died, but that you forced him to use his last breath. If Yuan Shua can't hold on until the end of this mission. If he didn't participate in this ancient ruin and open it. Even if you don't die now, you'll be sent to the most dangerous area to carry out the most dangerous mission. The woman's face changed. Bino LDM she had almost been beaten to death. On one hand, she was shocked by Yuan Shua's strength. On the other hand, she was very vengeful. This old man was too brutal. However, when he heard this, his expression changed. Yuan Shua was going to die. She was a little shocked. When she thought of the consequences, she couldn't care less about her injuries or revenge. She only had fear. He's going to die. I'm too heavily injured. My old injuries are acting up again. Hu Hao said in a low voice, the ability to break 100 points at the top level is really incredible. He had crossed 300 to 400 meters in the air and arrived in an instant. His blood qi had even suppressed the mysterious energy. A terrifying martial master. And this is also a technique he used at his peak. After being injured for a few years, his heart is about to shatter. To use it like this. Chapter 82. Master and disciple both promoted. 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 82. Chapter 23. Master and disciple both promoted. 3. The woman's face changed. She gritted her teeth and said, it's my fault. I'll immediately apply to the higher.ups to use all my savings, including my upcoming salary, to exchange for a Butian pill. Help him heal. Yuan Shua couldn't die. If he died, there would be a lot of trouble, especially since there would be a relic exploration soon. Yuan Shua was the expert of the archaeology department who knew the ruins the best. His importance was definitely more important than anything else in the Silver City. Hu Hao had come with her not to solve the self-immolation case, but to prevent Yuan Shua from being involved. It was precisely because of this that Yuan Shua had invited Li Hao to his place several times. He was still under the protection of the night patrolman. At this moment, the woman's injuries were extremely serious, but she still had to use all her savings to exchange for a treasure to heal Yuan Shua's injuries. One had to say that she was extremely aggrieved. But who asked her to not listen to advice? He had also underestimated this top-notch martial master. Thinking back to that moment just now, there was only lingering fear. Hu Hao also sighed. Hurry up and inform the higher.ups, or I'm afraid it'll be too late. I hope we can solve this problem. Just now, when he left, he held his heart. I'm worried that there's a possibility of his heart being crushed and bleeding. With Yuan Shua's pride, he wouldn't spit blood in front of us juniors unless he had no other choice. Yuan Shua was an extremely arrogant person. He was proud and arrogant. But now, as Hu Hao watched him leave, he couldn't help but feel a little sorry for himself. A grandmaster of his generation. He was the top figure of the martial master path. Today, he had only made a move, but he had already shown such fatigue. He could not bear to even die. To a peak-stage martial master, this was too cruel. Li Meng, who was injured quite badly, looked at Yuan Shua who was far away when he heard this. Suddenly, the hatred in the depths of his heart dissipated. He said apologetically, I didn't expect this to happen. He's too unyielding. I didn't even see anything, and he just came. Sigh, forget it. Hu Hao shook his head. Peeking at people's martial arts, and a unique secret technique at that, it didn't make sense no matter where he went. Li Meng might not have been trying to pry into the martial arts, but it was true that she had underestimated Yuan Shua. He felt that there was nothing to fear from an old fogey like Yuan Shua who had not fought for years. In fact, he felt that Yuan Shua was probably unaware of his existence and was overconfident, which was the reason for the current incident. Let's not talk about this. Retreat, stay far away. Hu Hao supported Li Meng and left quickly. This matter had to be reported, and he had to get some treasures as soon as possible. At the very least, he had to maintain Yuan Shua's life for a period of time, and he also had to appease him. Otherwise, why would he work for you when he's about to die? This matter would cause trouble if it was not handled properly. The higher-ups would probably be extremely angry with them. Who would have thought that it would end up like this? In the small courtyard, Yuan Shua limped back. Teacher. Li Hao was worried. The next moment, Yuan Shua exhaled and suddenly laughed. Why? He was fine. You scared me to death. Li Hao was stunned. What was going on? What are you looking at? Use your brain. As a teacher, Yuan Shua didn't mind giving him some pointers. He said with lingering fear, just now, my bad temper came at the first moment. In addition, I was in the transformation stage, so I couldn't hold back my anger and hit him too hard. This is the Night Patrollers, the #1 superpower organization. We still need their protection. Yuan Shua chuckled, wouldn't we start a feud if we beat him half to death? That's not good. Besides, she's a little girl. If we kill her, the night patrolmen will say that we're bullying the young. After saying that, he added meaningfully, if I keep a low profile, I might be able to get some benefits. I'm going to die soon, aren't you going to give me some treasures to save my life? They still need me. Li Hao took a deep breath. Had his teacher considered so many things in an instant? There's one more thing. I spat out a mouthful of blood and spat out the residual blood in my body. This residual blood is caused by the accumulation of the injury. It's also a good time for them to test it out. My injury is beyond cure and I'm about to die. There's no need to be wary of me. Li Hao took a deep breath. Was there such a meaning? Teacher, you're a sly old fox. No, you're a wily old fox. Of course, that was not the main point. Li Hao said in a low voice, Teacher, then your injuries, it's almost time. Yuan Shua laughed. His smile was exceptionally bright. Keep a low profile, my injuries are almost healed. Now is just the right time. He looked at Li Hao. Those two guys are here. After all, I can't drive them too far away. Now that they've left, they're at least 1,000 meters away from me. Now is the time for me to recover. killing many birds with one stone. The two of them were too close to each other. After all, they were superpowers and it was possible for them to sense something. But now, Yuan Shuo was enraged and the other party was injured. If he retreated 1,000 meters away, Yuan Shuo's chance would come. He wouldn't have to be afraid of being detected. If I recover, can I break through? Li Hao was a little nervous. Of course, at this moment, he was still a little shocked by his teacher. He was so handsome and so strong just now. He had crossed hundreds of meters in an instant. For the first time, he knew that the flying bird spell could really fly. Although he could only fly 100 meters, he still had to borrow strength. But 100 meters, flying. Yuan Shuo had been flying just now. One punch and two superpowers spat out blood. One was seriously injured and the other dared not make a sound. At this moment, there was only one thought in Li Hao's mind. His teacher hadn't broken through yet. Once he recovered and broke through, he would be beaten up, no matter what superpower he had. Chapter 83. Master and Disciple both promoted. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 83. Chapter 23. Master and Disciple both promoted. Yuan Shuo couldn't be bothered with what he was thinking. The attack just now was also a good thing. It also cleared out the residual blood in his body and removed some of the internal injuries he had suffered. As for getting some benefits, that wasn't the point. He had no use for them now that he was fully recovered, but it wasn't a problem to give them to Li Hao. At this moment, he was absorbing the mysterious energy again. He did not expect to become a super, but he wanted to make a breakthrough in his martial arts cultivation. 1000 combat. He was only one step away from becoming a Doqian martial master. At this moment, he felt a warm current flowing in his body. The broken blood was emptied, and the new blood was strong and powerful like a river. His muscles became more compact, not in blocks, but more powerful. A smile appeared on Yuan Shuo's face, and his white hair even began to turn black. He was already in his 70s, but at this moment, he felt as if his body had returned to its younger days. He was around 40 years old, which was also his peak. After he was 50 years old, he was actually going downhill. His muscles were not as strong as before, and he could only become stronger by relying on experience. Fighting 1,000, 1 against 1,000. At this moment, Yuan Shuo suddenly said, breaking 100 is already superhuman. It had surpassed the limits of the human body. In the past, Doqian was also known as the god of the land. Since ancient times, all Doqian martial masters had left their mark on the path of martial masters. It's often these martial masters who take the heads of generals from an army of 10,000. As long as you're careful, you can fight 1,000 people. If you're not stupid enough to confront an army of 10,000 people head on and retreat as soon as you see the situation is not good, the other party will have a hard time holding you back. Fighting against thousands of people didn't mean that you would be killed if there were more than 1,000 people. Unless one was really too stupid or was surrounded and unable to escape, it would be extremely difficult to kill without a direct confrontation with the army. Of course, that was the era of cold weapons. Today, 1,000-man warrior could be ambushed or killed by ordinary people if he was not careful. Li Hao, do you know what's the most unique feature of a warrior? I don't know. Li Hao shook his head. I don't even know if it's above 100. I only know that when it's cut 10 times, the bones and muscles will ring at the same time, and the internal strength will burst out. God! God! Li Hao was stunned. What god? Top-tier martial masters have cultivated their essence, qi, and spirit to the extreme, and their physical bodies are incomparably powerful. I stand here, I am the mountain, I stand here, I am the river. The mountains and rivers were fine even in the storm. This is 1,000-man battle. Then, Li Hao's vision blurred. In the next moment, the Yuan Shuo that entered his eyes seemed to have turned into a mountain and a river. The mountain was still, but the river was still. It was obviously contradictory, but it really existed. Boom! It was the sound of blood flowing. At this moment, Yuan Shuo's blood was boiling. His body was as still as a mountain, but his blood was running wildly. His bones and muscles were ringing together like a thunderstorm. Powerful. His aura exploded and was confined to the small courtyard. Li Hao felt like a small boat floating in the sea, about to be capsized at any time. His body began to sway, and he could not stand steadily. As for Yuan Shuo, his aura grew stronger and stronger. With a slight smile, his demonic voice came from the sky, "Take a look at the power and spirit of Martial Master Doqian. In the future, if I encounter such a person again, at least I won't be helpless and afraid." He had seen it before, so he had some experience. Not everyone could meet a warrior of 1,000 warriors. At this moment, Li Hao was drifting in the wind and rain. Start practicing the ape art. With my aura, I might be able to lead you to advance as well. Your inner strength will burst forth, your bones and muscles will ring together, and you will step into the true 10. Yuan Shuo shouted. Li Hao had only been practicing the 5 birds technique for 3 years. Moreover, he had been learning it as a fitness technique. 3 years of improvement was still okay, but it was only to build the foundation. He had never peeked into the 10th realm. However, at this moment, as Yuan Shuo's aura burst forth and the same secret technique guided him, Li Hao quickly began to use the art of ape. Like monkeys, they swayed in the courtyard like drunken fists. Together with Yuan Shuo, they began to perform fist techniques. That's right, Yuan Shuo was also practicing his fist techniques. Ape art. The master and disciple were throwing their fists, jumping, and shooting out. Gradually, Li Hao felt a force erupting from the depths of his body. Different from the mysterious energy, this force seemed to be produced by his body instead of an external force like the mysterious energy. The force spread out from his body and gradually spread to his legs. A surge of energy filled his legs. In the next moment, Li Hao kicked out, and the sound of pa, 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 pa could be heard. The sound of bones and tendons. Under the guidance of a grandmaster who was about to step into the 1,000 warrior realm, Li Hao, with the advantage of a cultivation technique from the same source, directly stepped into the 10th realm. And this was also an opportunity that countless people could only come across but not ask for. Li Hao had given Yuan Shuo a chance, and Yuan Shuo had given Li Hao a chance in return. Otherwise, even if Li Hao continued to absorb the mysterious energy, he might not be able to reach the 10th realm in a year or so even if he was fast. It all depended on luck. At this moment, under the guidance of Shi, he directly stepped into the 10th realm. Not only that, but he had also gained a great advantage by entering under the guidance of Grandmaster Doqian's aura. No matter how strong his opponent was, as long as he was not too much stronger than Doqian, Li Hao would not be afraid. Fear was often the greatest embodiment of the gap between levels. When a weakling encountered a strong opponent, they would usually cower before the battle and be led by the opponent's force. However, Li Hao advanced at the same time as Martial Master Doqian. Ha! Li Hao roared, and Yuan Shuo roared as well. In the small courtyard, a strong wind swept through. Li Hao kicked out, and the explosive sound of a whip came again. Beside him, Yuan Shuo wasn't as exaggerated as he was. As if he had returned to his original state, he gently retracted his fists and legs without much movement. However, when Li Hao looked at it, he was stunned. His white hair instantly turned black. Not only that, pieces of Yuan Shuo's old skin fell off his body and drifted with the wind. They even drifted to Li Hao's eyes and mouth. Bah! Li Hao vomited, feeling disgusted. He then looked at his teacher, stunned. A teacher in his 70s actually felt like a middle-aged man in his 40s at this moment. This could even rejuvenate one's youth. As for Yuan Shua, he stood there for a moment, as if he was digesting what he had just learned. Then, he looked at Li Hao and smiled. While Li Hao was at a loss, Yuan Shua appeared in front of him. He grabbed Li Hao, who was unable to resist. Bada! Li Hao was dumbfounded. He seemed to have been molested by his teacher. Yuan Shua grabbed him and gave him a big kiss, his face almost blooming with a smile. Good child. Yuan Shua laughed out loud. He laughed so hard that he did not know what to do. He laughed so hard that he seemed to be a little crazy. I, Yuan Shua, have returned. 1000 combat. When I become a superpower, who in the world can defeat me? 20 years, what was 20 years? Doqian, even if I give you 100 years, you are not qualified to pry. Good boy, from now on, we master and disciple will run amok in the world and no one will be able to defeat us. Mere superpowers can be destroyed with a snap of the finger. Mad. Incomparably wild. At this moment, Li Hao was a little excited. So awesome, then what am I afraid of? Oh my God, the red shadow is nothing. My teacher, Qian Do. P.S. I'm begging for monthly votes at the end of the month. Keep the top 10 and aim for the top 5. Let's do it. Chapter 84. Super Level, Master. Apprentice Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. Chapter 24. Super Level, Master. Apprentice Plan. At this moment, the master and disciple were both crazy. He didn't need to worry. He was not afraid anymore. Our teacher is in the Warrior 1000 domain, and he might be the first in the Martial Master domain. What's there to be afraid of? Li Hao didn't think too much about the fact that he had entered the 10/realm. 10 cuts. That's it. In the demon hunting squad, each of them could kill 10 people, but they were still struggling. At this moment, Li Hao still didn't quite understand what it meant to reach /10 in 3 years. Yuan Shua understood this, but he did not care much about it. Slashing 10 was indeed weak. Moreover, this was his student. Even though she did not focus on martial arts, with him, a warrior of 1000-fold, leading her, wasn't it necessary for her to enter the /10? Moreover, Li Hao was already 20 years old. It wasn't too much of an exaggeration to enter /10 at the age of 20. Yuan Shua still remembered that the disciple of an old friend of his had entered /10 at the age of 12. That would have been an exaggeration. Of course, his old friend's disciple had been practicing martial arts since he was young. At the age of 3, he had used precious medicinal herbs to wash his body. Yuan Shua was too lazy to say anything about this. Moreover, it wasn't like Li Hao didn't have any external help. Not to mention the starlight energy, the mysterious energy he had absorbed was also a key factor. Teacher. At this moment, Li Hao didn't care about anything else. He said excitedly, is Master Doqian also invincible in the superpower realm? A warrior of thousands. Yuan Shua's face was full of smiles. After a moment, as if he was thinking, he slowly said, almost. When I become a superpower, I'll be invincible. What if you haven, T? Li Hao vaguely felt that something was wrong, so he asked. Yuan Shua stroked his beard. And suddenly, he realized that his beard was gone. Feeling a little unaccustomed to it, he pondered for a moment before speaking in a vague manner, that Qian Do is also a top-notch existence. How top-grade? Li Hao still felt a little uneasy. Why was his teacher's words a little vague? Yuan Shua coughed. You're asking too many questions on this joyous day. The wild and unrestrained attitude from earlier had now been restrained a little. Yuan Shua said calmly, Li Hao, you have to know that not all superpowers are powerful. For example, when an ordinary person became a superpower, they would start off with the strength of the 10th realm. After a period of time, it will improve, and then it will be comparable to breaking through 100. And breaking through 100, there are actually many differences. Breaking through 900 is also breaking through 100, breaking through 100 is also breaking through 100. Li Hao couldn't hold back. At this time, he was too eager to know if his teacher was invincible, so he directly interrupted, "Teacher, you weren't just bragging, were you?" "Ha!" Yuan Shuo laughed, as if he was very dissatisfied. He pointed at the sky and arrogantly said, "Let me put it this way. In the entire Silver Moon province, with my strength, there are only 3 to 5 people who can defeat me. Silver Moon province, 32 cities, top 5. Li Hao was still a little shocked when he heard this. How big was the Silver Moon province? How many people? Silver City was considered a small city and was already very backward. For example, the provincial capital, White Moon City, had a population of 30 million. And Silver City had millions of people. Compared to the White Moon City, it was trash. The smaller cities were about the same as Silver City, while the bigger ones were not as big as White Moon City. However, Yaoguang City, which was ranked second in the province, had a population of more than 10 million. The entire Silver Moon province had a population of close to 100 million. With so many people and supers, how could his teacher be in the top 5? Teacher, Martial Master Doqian is so powerful. Then, before he could finish his sentence, Yuan Shuo's next sentence almost gave him a shock. There are only 3 to 5 people who can beat me, but I'm only talking about those who are higher level than me. According to the superpower realm, there are about dozens of them who are at the same level as me. Yuan Shuo was a little embarrassed. Of course, if he became a super, those who were stronger than him might not be able to compare to him. Li Hao was a little disappointed at first, but then he realized that it was quite impressive. There weren't many powerhouses of the same rank in the huge Silver Moon province. After all, his teacher had never stepped into the realm of superpowers. It was already shocking that he was so strong. Teacher, is it easy to reach the warrior level in the realm of superpowers? Easy. Yuan Shuo laughed, it's not that easy, but it's much easier than being a martial master. Let's put it this way, there are different levels of superpowers. Among the superpowers, those that are comparable to the 1000-man level are called the sunlight. A solar illumination realm super was equivalent to a warrior of the combat 1000 realm. There are many sun glory realms in Silver Moon province, and almost every big city has a sun glory realm cultivator. But it's only relatively easy. At the very least, the realm of martial masters. I might be the last warrior master in the last 20 years. He sighed and shook his head. There were still some 20 years ago. But now, he had not heard of it. Maybe there were more, but they were either in seclusion or waiting for an opportunity to step into the supernatural realm. Or they might have already stepped into the supernatural realm. It was not certain whether he was in Silver Moon province or not. He had not left Silver Moon province for many years and did not know much about the outside world. At this moment, Li Hao remembered the name. The Sunlit Realm. The strong ones among the supers were comparable to the existence of the 1000-warrior realm. In the past, the 1000-warrior realm experts who were known as the Land Immortals were not invincible among the supers. There were dozens of them in Silver Moon province. What level was that red shadow at? Li Hao was worried that he would kill his teacher, so he asked, Teacher, now that you've become a warrior, can you deal with the superhuman who killed Xiao Yuan? Also, if the other party is an organization, will there be a lot of supers and we can't deal with them? Chapter 85. Super Level, Master. Disciple Plan, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85. Chapter 24. Super Level, Master. Disciple Plan, 2, let's talk inside. Yuan Shua glanced outside and said in a low voice, "Let's go in and take a break. The changes are a little big. Let's keep a low profile." Li Hao understood. The two of them walked toward the main house of the small courtyard. It was a large, antique, and spacious living room. After entering the house, Yuan Shua didn't rush to speak to Li Hao. He walked to the mirror and looked at himself. He nodded in satisfaction before returning to the hall. It was a little showy. Li Hao pretended not to see it. The supers who killed Zhang Yuan, in my opinion, are not weak, but they are not too strong either. Yuan Shua analyzed, if he was really strong, Zhang Yuan wouldn't have had the chance to walk out of the dormitory. He would have been burned to ashes without a sound. But he walked out. This means that the person who killed him, or some kind of superpower, is limited. Of course, we can't judge that they're weak just from this. They can't be weak if they can plan for more than 10 years. Now, we have to see if they're an organization or an individual. It should be the organization. Li Hao said after some thought. What do you mean? Yuan Shua looked at Li Hao, as if he was testing him. Li Hao analyzed, I sense the presence of the other party outside Zhang Yuan's house. They're stalking us. I also found that someone followed me from outside the inspection office and drove. It might be an ordinary person. The mastermind shouldn't have such a big heart. There's no need to keep following me. After all, I'm very weak. So, there must be more than one person, but I can't tell how many people and supers there are. Teacher, he said, looking at Yuan Shua. How do we determine the strength of supers? It's hard to judge. It's the same for martial masters. Yuan Shua said directly. If you don't show your characteristics, it'll be hard to judge your actual strength. When it comes to strength, only action is the true standard to judge. As for the super detector, it's all nonsense. Yuan Shua was disdainful. I even contributed to that thing. It's a little useful, but not very useful. For example, a sunlit master can completely compress his own mysterious energy and reduce the dispersion of the mysterious energy. What you can detect may only be the weakest fluctuation of the superpower. How do you judge his strength? This was true. Li Hao thought of his own eyes. He was different from the others. He could see the mysterious energy, but could he use the mysterious energy to judge? At this thought, Li Hao hurriedly asked, Teacher, is the amount of mystical energy in the body different for supers of different levels? Nonsense, of course. Yuan Shua nodded, the stronger and denser the mysterious energy, the more powerful it is. Of course, we don't consider actual combat and practical situations. For example, if a superhuman is good at healing, he might be strong, but he might not be weaker than someone. This also depends on the individual's ability. Understood. Then, what's the difference between different levels of mysterious energy? Li Hao was curious. I saw an ice crystal barrier in the demon hunting squad. It can display mysterious energy. Does it mean that the state, level, and strength of the mysterious energy are different? Of course. This was also Yuan Shua's specialty. He was the one who discovered the ice crystal and even contributed to the dying method of the mysterious energy. He nodded and said, in the field of superpower, I won't talk about those who are stronger than me. We are similar to martial masters. When we first step into the supernatural realm, the mysterious energy will be like starlight. This is the origin of the name Starlight Master. In fact, Starlight Masters are not the entire group of supers, but the representative of the first level. It's just that everyone is used to calling supers Starlight Masters. Starlight Master. The first level. So, a Starlight Master is only at the level of 10. Realm beheading. Li Hao asked hurriedly. He felt so weak. I've already cut 10. Almost. Of course, everyone's domains are different, so it's hard to tell who's stronger if we really fight. At the second level, the mysterious energy is brighter, like the light of the full moon. This level is called the Moon Master. Li Hao listened attentively. This was the first time someone had explained to him about the supernatural realm. Previously, the demon hunting teams would hardly mention this because they had not stepped into the supernatural realm. Even though Yuan Shua did not have any, he was extremely familiar with superpowers. He was in this line of work. Starlight, dark moon, sunlight. They're almost equivalent to slashing 10, breaking 100, and fighting 1,000. You can't say that completely. Although Yuan Shua didn't want to admit it, he still said, at the same level, unless a martial master has reached the warrior Qian level, he will not be able to defeat a super of the same level. Why? Li Hao was surprised. Why? They were not on the same level. Yuan Shua smiled helplessly. Let's put it this way, martial masters can only attack physically. As for superpowers, it was not a matter of physical attacks. For example, the two guys outside just now, the man could fly. He probably just entered Dark Moon not long ago. I'm fighting 1,000 men now, but if he's prepared in advance, flying into the sky and never coming down. What do you think I can do? Teacher can also fly. Yuan Shua was truly helpless this time. I can't fly. That's called borrowing strength to soar into the air. I can't stay there forever. As long as he doesn't exhaust his mysterious energy, he can always fly. It's different. As he said that, he suddenly said proudly, of course, if I want to kill him, I can do it with one punch. It was useless even if he could fly. At the warrior power level, even a master warrior had some special abilities. Therefore, a master warrior could only compete with his opponent's sunlight when he reached the warrior power level. Before that, he's a bit weaker than those on the same level. Chapter 86. Super Level, Master. Apprentice Plan, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. Super Level, Master. Apprentice Plan, 3, Li Hao didn't know if it was true, but he could only believe it. He thought of the two people outside and couldn't help but ask, in other words, the two people outside just now might be more powerful than Captain Lu. Superpowers were too terrifying. From afar, the two of them looked very young. Lu Long, on the other hand, had been bitterly cultivating martial arts for decades, yet he was still inferior to these two young men. That might not be the case. No, Yuan Shua shook his head. Lu Long is in his 40s, and he has been practicing martial arts for 20 to 30 years. He is much more experienced than them. If they were to fight with Lu Long, the probability of them dying would be even higher. No wonder. No wonder Lu Long said that if he couldn't solve it, even if there were night patrols in the Silver City, they might not be of any use. What was the Red Shadow's strength? Li Hao thought for a moment. The Red Shadow didn't seem to have any mysterious energy. In other words, the Red Shadow had no level. Only the person behind the Red Shadow had a level. But I didn't see the existence behind it. He thought of another person he had met before, Wang Ming. He had also seen Wang Ming's mysterious energy before. It was very bright, even brighter than Lu Long's. Could it be that Wang Ming was also at the Dark Moon level? As for sunlight, it shouldn't be. According to his teacher, there weren't many Sunlit Realm supers. There might only be one in each city, and this didn't include a small city like Silver City. Moreover, Sunlit was comparable to 1,000 combat machines. Li Hao had a vague understanding of his teacher's power. Wang Ming was clearly much worse. That Wang Ming might be a Moon Underworld master, about the same as the two outside just now. 3 Dark Moon night patrols had come to the Silver City. 2 of them were protecting the teacher, and 1 was hiding in the dark. The night patrols seemed to take this very seriously. Teacher, Li Hao said hurriedly, there's a superhuman in the patrol driver's office. He might be the Moon Hades master. What? Yuan Shuo was slightly stunned. Without asking how Li Hao knew about it, he judged it and said with a smile, interesting. It seems that the person who killed Zhang Yuan is not simple. The night patrolman should have known, or even guessed the identity of the other party, so he was careful. Teacher, I'm not too sure. Could the other party be the one behind Zhang Yuan's death? It's unlikely. Yuan Shuo shook his head directly. Do you think it's easy to get into the inspection division? Whether or not he was a superhuman, the inspection bureau could actually find out. This meant that if someone entered the inspection bureau, the director of the inspection bureau would definitely know. 100%. Unless your chief is also in cahoots with him, otherwise, that guy is 100% a night patrol. Li Hao heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. He was really afraid that they were from the Red Shadow. The master and disciple chatted for a while. At this moment, Yuan Shuo said solemnly, let's not talk about other things, but that sword of yours. Keep it safe. He had just returned the jade sword to Li Hao. He had absorbed so much energy that he was still able to absorb it even after he had stepped into the universe. This was unbelievable. There were too many. Yes. Li Hao nodded. He now understood the value of the jade sword. In fact, he had already felt it when he absorbed the mysterious energy from the demon hunting squad. Yuan Shuo thought for a while and said, also, although I've already mastered the warrior's Qian ability, it's still very difficult for me to become a super and take another step forward. I'm mainly lacking in mysterious abilities. It's not the one in your hand. This thing is not used to increase combat strength. This thing is used to strengthen the foundation, and it's 100 times more precious than that. With my strength, it'll be difficult for me to enter the realm of supers without a few hundred or 1,000 cubic meters of energy from the mysterious organization. Li Hao quickly calculated. The black market price was 1 million per square meter. If I need 1,000 cubic meters to advance, how much would that cost? 1 billion. Li Hao swallowed his saliva. Don T. This is too scary. His teacher shouldn't have that much money, although he felt that his teacher was quite rich. Of course, to Yuan Shuo, if he could really buy it with money, it would be simple. However, it was impossible for the night patrollers to not know about such a large-scale transaction. It was also impossible for the other large organizations to not know about it. This was not desirable. He looked at Li Hao, pondered for a moment, and said, it's still not appropriate for me to show my face now. The main thing is that I still have some enemies. Although they're not in Silver Moon Province, their strength is not for show. We still need to keep a low profile. Li Hao smiled bitterly. Just now, she said that she was fearless. As expected, the teacher's words were 30% true and 70% false. Of course, Yuan Shuo added, if I advance, then I'll really be a tyrant. You'll have no problem doing whatever you want in the future. I'll keep a low profile for a few days. Don't worry. Yuan Shuo laughed, as for the danger this time, I'll observe first. If the other party is too weak, I'll just kill them directly. If they are very strong, let the night patrolman take the blame. He laughed. Li Hao looked interested. Yuan Shuo said in a low voice, the people behind the scenes are weak. I can even capture them all in one fell swoop. Then, there's no need to say anything more. There's only one word. Kill. However, if the other party is above the sun illumination realm, you'll be in trouble. Even if I can resist them, you'll be in big trouble. So, if there really is such a powerful person, he must not be in the Silver City right now. Kill those below the Sun Glory realm. Even if there's someone at the Sun Glory realm, just say that it was killed by the night patrollers. There are still some powerhouses among the night patrollers. The 3 to 5 people I mentioned who are more powerful than me, half of them are from the night patrollers. Li Hao nodded. The teacher was judging the person. It's good to be cautious. Moreover, even though he and Yuan Shua did not say it out loud, both of them knew. Chapter 87. Super Level, Master_Disciple Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87. Chapter 24 Super Level, Master_Disciple Plan. A guy who had been planning for so many years, and when he thought about the power of the starlight energy in the jade sword, if the other party had seized the other treasures, wouldn't he also be much stronger? If Yuan Shua could step into the 1000 warrior class, why couldn't the other party take the opportunity to step into a stronger level? The two of them did not mention it because they were worried that it would wear down their confidence. Yuan Shua judged that if there really was someone stronger than him, they would definitely not be in Silver City, or even Silver Moon Province. That would make things much easier. Thinking of this, he added, also, your jade pendant is a jade pendant. When you leave, I'll prepare a sword for you. Extraordinary item. No one has ever seen your sword, no one knows about it. Yuan Shua laughed sinisterly. Isn't it up to you to decide what the Li family's sword looks like? You're just an ordinary person. If you have an extraordinary item, wouldn't that be the Li family's sword? Of course, it has to be good. It can't be junk. At the thought of this, Yuan Shua felt his heart ache. All these years, the night patrollers have been watching me. It's hard for me to collect too many treasures. Forget it, forget it. I did collect a good sword a few years ago. It's definitely a treasure. As he said that, his eyes moved slightly. You don't say, it's really very suitable. That sword is also sealed, and there's nothing mysterious on the surface, but there's light inside. I suspect that it's also a treasure passed down by the bloodline, and it was found in a large historical site. Teacher, Li Hao couldn't help but say, your sword might be more precious than mine. Wouldn't that be a loss? He knew what Yuan Shua meant. It was a substitute. However, if his sword wasn't as expensive as that sword, wouldn't he be making a loss? Impossible. Yuan Shua shook his head. Li Hao's was definitely very precious. He did not explain and immediately said, when you leave later, remember to bring it. I don't need to tell you how to use this thing. If the enemy is too strong, even I can't do anything about it. You can just throw your sword and see if you can save your life. If the enemy is killed by me or the night patrolman, you'd better throw your sword to the night patrolman. Otherwise, the night patrolman won't be the one to take the blame. The master and disciple quickly decided on their plan. Weak, killed. Even if he was strong, he would get rid of the claw and let the night patrolman take the blame. Of course, this was under the premise that the night patrolman would take the sword. If he didn't, the blame would probably still fall on Li Hao. Would the night patrolman want it? Since Yuan Shua had said so, there was naturally a high chance that he would want it. As for whether he felt guilty or not, Yuan Shua did not feel guilty at all. In fact, Li Hao did not feel guilty either. If the night patrolman had taken the sword, he deserved to be the scapegoat. He could not be blamed for this. They chatted for almost an hour. At this moment, Yuan Shua had already drawn his sword. Not only that, Yuan Shua had also dyed his hair white. It seemed that this old man was not going to expose himself in the short term. The sword that Yuan Shua gave him wasn't too big. It was slightly bigger than a jade pendant, and one could tell at a glance that it was a sword. However, it was about the size of a dagger, and it could be kept in a pocket. It was quite fitting. Li Hao glanced at it. In fact, he could vaguely see a layer of powerful mysterious energy. He was really reluctant to take it. This sword, his teacher might only have one treasure of this level. In the end, in order to avoid trouble, he still gave it to him. Go back early. Yuan Shua made some arrangements and reminded, don't worry too much. I won't be following you all the time, but I'll be there soon if something happens. What you need to do is not to be instantly killed." Li Hao nodded. Yuan Shuo thought for a moment and said, "It's also necessary to improve myself. You've entered the 10th Severing Realm, but that doesn't mean you're very powerful. The strength of the 10th Severing Realm is also very clear. Slashing 99 is considered slashing 10. Of course, it might be an exaggeration, but the gap is still there." He also thought that it would be difficult for Li Hao to improve in a short period of time. Yuan Shuo was about to let Li Hao leave, but he suddenly stopped him. "Forget it. You have never experienced a real battle. What I taught you in the past were actually all techniques to keep you healthy. They are not very practical in real combat. After this, I will definitely give you some supplements." There was not enough time. He thought for a moment and finally made a decision. "I'll teach you a slightly sinister attack now. This isn't one of the 5 birds technique, so it's not too difficult to learn, but it's useful for saving your life." Li Hao's eyes lit up. Sinister. Oh. He didn't hear it. "I don't care, I just want to live." Yuan Shuo didn't go out. He just stood in the hall and put on a posture that looked dignified. A martial master needs to get close to his opponent, especially a third-rate martial master like you. You don't need to learn offensive techniques because you might not be able to use them. If you can really use them, then you don't need to use them. Today, I'll teach you the magical hand rejuvenation. This is also a technique I found in ancient books. Magical hands. This name sounded very decent, even somewhat similar to the professional skills of a doctor. However, when Yuan Shuo used it, Li Hao finally understood what it meant. Yuan Shuo's hands were seen waving around as if he was waving them around randomly. He clearly only had 2 hands, but in the next moment, a third hand suddenly appeared. Yes, 3 hands. The moment the third hand appeared, it reached for Li Hao's crotch. He couldn't react in time. In the art of ape, there was actually a move called monkey steals peaches, but it wasn't as confusing as this. Once it was used, the opponent might know and specifically target the lower 3. However, this magical hand rejuvenation had actually produced a third hand. Li Hao was so scared that his face turned pale. At this moment, Yuan Shuo was all smiles as he retracted his hand and said, "The key to magical hand rejuvenation lies in magical hand, which makes it impossible to guard against." This was actually a thieving technique recorded in ancient books. The ancient civilization also had low-class people who used them for theft. I've modified it a little and modified it into a technique suitable for sneak attacks, a frontal sneak attack. They were clearly exchanging blows, but who could defend against an extra hand suddenly appearing? "Teacher, why is there an extra hand?" Li Hao was still confused. This technique didn't seem difficult, but where did the extra hands come from? He took a closer look and saw that Yuan Shuo still only had 2 hands. This is the core. It's actually very simple. A person only has 2 hands, so the third hand is naturally fake. Yuan Shuo began explaining to Li Hao. Some of the 3 hands were fake, but they had to pass off the fake as the real one and hide in the hand. That was the real difficulty. The master and disciple studied it for a while, and Li Hao only stopped after he had learned the general idea and understood the essence. Soon, Li Hao left the small courtyard. Outside, the person who had blocked the road earlier had also disappeared. Li Hao didn't sense that someone was following him until he was some distance away from the courtyard. He could feel it because he vaguely saw stars twinkling in the distance. Supers. It should be the man and woman from before who were seriously injured by the teacher's kick. They probably wouldn't recover in a short time. Li Hao's expression didn't change. As if he hadn't noticed anything, he quickly disappeared on his bicycle. Hu Hao only showed up after Li Hao left. He glanced at Li Hao, then at the small courtyard, and was a little confused. What did Yuan Shua teach Li Hao? The master and disciple had been together for several hours. I wonder how old Yuan's injuries are. He sighed softly and felt a little helpless. He had better not die. Otherwise, he and Li Meng would be in deep trouble. Chapter 88. Satisfied, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 88. Chapter 25. Satisfied, 1, it was already past 4 in the afternoon when they left the ancient academy. It was the afternoon of the 14th of July. According to the forecast, on the 18th, the Silver City would welcome the rainy season, which would last for a long time. 3 more days. Li Hao muttered to himself as he rode his bike. Because it was going to rain on the 18th, that day couldn't be counted, and there wasn't much time. As for whether it was accurate or not, the accuracy of the weather forecast in Silver City was quite high. With these thoughts in mind, Li Hao returned to the inspection office. He still had to clock in and get off work. Moreover, Wang Ming had said that he would treat them to dinner tonight. As a single man and a good old man in the secrets room, Li Hao wouldn't refuse. If he refused, he wouldn't fit his character. In the confidential room. Seeing that Li Hao had returned, Wang Ming's eyes lit up slightly as he was learning how to handle documents with Chen Na. The curiosity in his eyes disappeared in a flash. However, Li Hao, who had been observing him, could see it clearly. It would be fine if he didn't care, but if he did care, he could still sense a thing or two. Clearly, this Wang Ming wasn't the kind of person who was old and scheming. He might really be relatively young, or perhaps like Li Meng, he was a night patrol who had just finished a mission. Li Hao guessed that perhaps this person already knew that his teacher had injured Li Meng. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so curious when they had left earlier. Perhaps, this fellow was also curious about what secret technique his teacher had imparted to him. After all, Yuan Shua's excuse was that he had imparted a secret technique to him. Brother Hao is back. Wang Ming was quite polite, and he could also put down his pride and call him Brother Hao. Yes, I'm done. Li Hao smiled and nodded. Chen Na looked up and giggled. What do you mean by done? I think you don't want to cook for yourself. You're just here to freeload. It's already time to get off work, and you still ran back. You must be thinking about Little Ming's food. Little Ming. Li Hao wanted to laugh, but he held back. Chen Na might have heard him calling Wang Ming that, and was now starting to call him Little Ming. Wang Ming's eyes showed a hint of helplessness, but he didn't show it. He tacitly agreed to Chen Na's way of addressing him and quickly nodded. I've already found a place for the dinner. We'll go there after work, but I don't know if it's to your taste. I'll eat anything. It doesn't matter. Chen Na was easy to talk to, so Li Hao was even easier to talk to. However, he still asked, just the 3 of us. Wang Ming hurriedly said, I'll treat the 2 of you today. I've troubled you for the whole day. As for the other colleagues, I'll treat them tomorrow. Li Hao didn't say anything. He returned to his seat and quickly dealt with some files. After a busy period, it was time to get off work. 5:30. At the entrance of the inspection office. Wang Ming looked at Li Hao's bicycle in a daze. He couldn't help but ask, Brother Hao, are we going by bike? He didn't bring a car with him. He didn't have time to buy a car. Li Hao was very polite and said that he would bring him along. However, in the blink of an eye, he saw Li Hao riding his broken bicycle over. Although he had seen Li Hao ride out in the afternoon. Who knew that this guy really only had a bicycle? Not far away. Li Hao laughed. It's right in front. It'll take you 10 minutes to get there by bike. Do you want to take a ride? Sister Na has a car. Let's sit in Sister Na's car together. That won't do. Li Hao shook his head. I have to go home tonight. I left my bicycle here. I have to walk back. That's too much trouble. Wang Ming couldn't help but curse. This guy was so stubborn. He's so young, but he's like an old pedant. He goes out to ride his bike and reads the newspapers to work. He's a student of the Silver City Ancient Academy, after all. He doesn't have any pursuits. Although he wasn't very satisfied with the bicycle, Chen Na was a woman driving by herself, while Li Hao was riding. After some consideration, Wang Ming decided to go with Li Hao, and he wanted to get to know Li Hao more. On the bicycle, Wang Ming's long legs were particularly awkward as he had nowhere to put them. At this moment, he had no choice but to hold Li Hao's waist, which was a new experience for him. "Brother Hao," he said, "what's in your pocket?" "It's a little scary." If it wasn't at Li Hao's waist, his thoughts would have been in a mess. It was so hard. "I'm a man. Of course, it's at the waist. I'm probably thinking too much. Oh, I almost forgot." Li Hao rode his bike and said with a smile without looking back, "It's an old item passed down from my family. Recently, our neighborhood hasn't been very quiet. The dogs bark loudly at night. I was afraid of losing it, so I put it in my pocket." Wang Ming's eyes instantly lit up. An old object. A family heirloom. He seemed to be interested and asked casually, "What old thing is this? Aren't you afraid of breaking it?" "Brother Hao sure is careless. I want tea." Li Hao immediately laughed. "It's not porcelain. It's just a small metal sword. Even if it hits the ground, it won't break. I smashed it countless times when I was young." A small sword. Seeing Li Hao's back to him, Wang Ming's eyes were frighteningly bright. It really didn't take any effort at all. The Li family's sword was actually on Li Hao's body, in his pocket. Moreover, at this moment, he could reach out and take it away. He found it a little unbelievable, but he soon felt that it was normal. The neighborhood wasn't very peaceful, so of course, he had to bring good things with him. He just didn't expect that he would be able to see the Li family's sword so soon. There was actually a file on this sword within the Night Watchman. Of course, it was very general. After all, the Night Watchman had only been established for a short time. It was only a summary based on some general information. Chapter 89. Perfectly Satisfied, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Chapter 25. Perfectly Satisfied, 2, the 8 great families of the Silver Blizzard City had a long history, perhaps hundreds or even thousands of years. It was hard to track them down now. However, according to the Night Patrolman's judgment, the weapons that appeared in the Sun Song of the 8 great families of the Silver City were at least of the glorious Sun rank. The field of superpower, which had started late, now ranked these extraordinary items according to the level of superpower. Ri Yao was an expert that was comparable to a Do Qian martial master. Weapons at the level of Sunlit were also rare treasures for supers. Wang Ming was a little moved, and he couldn't help but say, "Brother Hao, this is a small sword, and it's a family heirloom. Can I see it? I'm quite interested in these old objects. I've collected a lot of old things in White Moon City. If Brother Hao likes them, I'll go home and bring some for you to play with during the holidays," she added. "Forget it," he said. Li Hao laughed innocently. "Take it yourself. There's nothing to see. But don't break it. Although it might not be worth much, it's a family heirloom. After my parents passed away, this sword became the most memorable thing in the family. Don't worry, I won tea." Wang Ming was overjoyed to get Li Hao's permission. It didn't take any effort at all. Although he couldn't take it away easily at this moment, after all, the Night Patrolman needed to know more information about the person behind the scenes, it was also good to see it first. He was no longer polite, and directly took out the small sword from Li Hao's pocket. The moment he picked up the small silver sword, a hint of shock instantly appeared in Wang Ming's eyes. It really was an extraordinary item. Although the mysterious energy was so little that it was difficult to detect through his clothes, when he held it in his hand, he could clearly feel that it was different from the rest. The mysterious energy in his body suddenly became active. Good treasure. There was a hint of greed in Wang Ming's eyes. Any superhuman who saw or felt it would probably be greedy. The development of superpowers was too short. It was still impossible for everyone to have a superpower item. In fact, even in the Nightwalker system, there were still a portion of Sun Glory Realm powerhouses who could not have their own superpower weapons. And he was only Yu Ming. Compared to those old seniors, it was even more difficult to obtain these treasures. Wang Ming quickly suppressed his greed. This thing was not that easy to take. As he played with the small sword, he could vaguely feel a murderous aura. This sword was probably not simple. It seemed to be more mysterious than some of the extraordinary items he had seen before. It seems to have been sealed. He had a vague feeling that this sword should be in a sealed state. No wonder no one had noticed the weapons of the 8 great families before. It could be due to the rise of the supers that these weapons were able to see the light of day again. They were gradually unsealed and revealed something different. Then, they were perceived by others and their secrets were discovered. This explains why the other party didn't take the small sword directly. It might be that he needs some steps to unseal this sword. Wang Ming made this judgment in his heart, he wasn't stupid. He quickly guessed some key points. They looked at Li Hao's back and felt sorry for him. He might really be the descendant of Super Gu. What a pity. As time passed, the treasures left behind by the old ancestor had become a fatal poison. Among the 8 great families, the night patrolman had investigated and found that Li Hao was perhaps the only true heir. The premise was that Li Hao was the Li family descendant of the Li family's swords. He hadn't been 100% sure before, but now he was 100% sure. He was holding the Li family's sword in his hand. Brother Hao, this sword is so pretty. Wang Ming said with an interested expression, Brother Hao, are you selling? I'm not selling. Li Hao refused directly. Don't even think about my sword. It's my family heirloom. If I dare to sell it, my father will climb out of the ground and beat me to death. Besides, I've actually appraised it myself. Even if it's made of iron, it's not worth much. You can't say that. Everyone has their own interests and opinions. If Brother Hao wants to sell it, I'm very interested. I can't say for sure, but I can still afford to pay 100 or 200,000. So expensive. Li Hao was extremely surprised. 100,000 or 200,000. Seeing that he was even slowing down, Wang Ming sighed in his heart. The world everyone saw was different, and sure enough, there was a big difference. 100,000 or 200,000. If this was really an extraordinary item at the Sun Glory level, those Sun Glory powerhouses would not have a problem even if they had to pay 100 times more, let alone 100,000 or 200,000. What was 10 million star dollars? The entire Silver Moon province had a population of nearly 100 million, but how many sunbeams were there? Which one of them didn't desire it so much that they wouldn't even blink their eyes for a few star dollars? Of course, he wouldn't bid too much, or Li Hao would be suspicious. That's right. We can negotiate for $100,000 or $200,000. Brother Hao, if you sell this sword, you might be able to buy a suite. Li Hao quickly nodded. After a quick calculation, he took a deep breath and said, don't joke with me. Right now, in the downtown area of Silver City, the housing price is only about 3,000 yuan in the neighborhood near our inspection office. If we can really sell it for 200,000 yuan, we can even buy a new 2-bedroom house. Wang Ming thought he was interested, so he smiled and said, that's right. Of course, I don't have any money on hand right now. I'll ask my family for it when I go back during the holidays, and you can tell me more about this sword's origin. I can't take it away now. He still needed Li Hao as a catalyst. In the later stages, if Li Hao had nothing to do and the sword was still in his hands, they could talk about the business deal. Chapter 90. Perfectly Satisfied, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. Chapter 25. Perfectly Satisfied, 3, as for snatching it by force. The night patrolman would not go so far as to do that. Under normal circumstances, there was no need to do this. At that moment, Wang Ming felt that he had completed more than half of his mission in an instant. After confirming Li Hao's identity and the existence of the Li family's sword, and seeing it with his own eyes and playing with it, and confirming that it was an extraordinary item, it was 100% certain that Li Hao was the enemy's next target. While they were chatting, they arrived at the restaurant. Wang Ming got out of the car and went to a private room to order some food while waiting for Chen Na. Li Hao, on the other hand, went to find a place to park his bicycle. On the side of the road. Li Hao parked his bicycle, took out his communicator, and dialed a number. Speak. Lu Long was as cold and arrogant as ever. Li Hao, on the other hand, was a little nervous. He lowered his voice and said in a low voice, "Boss, will our communication be monitored?" I want tea. Lu Long's explanation was still short and concise, but at this moment, he already felt that something was wrong. Where are you? Jade River Restaurant. What happened? Li Hao was extremely nervous. He lowered his voice again, so low that it couldn't be heard. Boss, I think I've been targeted by supers. It's not that kind of target, it's right next to me. There's a newcomer in our confidential room called Wang Ming. Just now, I rode my bike with him to have a meal. I have an old item at home that I always carry with me. He insisted on taking it to take a look. I thought that since he's an ordinary person, it would be fine for him to take a look. In the end, when he came into contact with my old item, I vaguely felt a mysterious energy erupting from him. Lu Long instantly realized that it was the Li family's sword. As for Wang Ming, he had activated the extraordinary item and unleashed his mysterious energy, which Li Hao had sensed. Superhuman. Lu Long immediately frowned, but quickly regained his calm. Stay calm. Don't be afraid. If I really wanted to kill you, I would have done so long ago. Don't show any signs of abnormality, he said. I believe you can calm down. Boss, I'm worried. No need to worry. Lu Long comforted Li Hao and quickly made a judgment in his heart. A superhuman appeared in the inspection office. Was he from the night patrollers? It was highly possible. He was a little dissatisfied and angry. The night patrolman had sent someone here, but now he was still hiding it from him. He knew exactly what the night patrolman was thinking. Wasn't he just observing silently and using him as a scout? Even though he had known all this long ago, he was surprised that the night patrolman did not even inform him of his plans. Also, the Inspector General, it seems like he is also dissatisfied with me. Otherwise, the night patrolman would not be able to hide it from the secretary of the inspection division. He judged for a while. There was a high probability that they were night patrollers. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that they were enemies. The probability was not too high. Lu Long was still thinking when he heard Li Hao say nervously, "Boss, I'm a little worried. But this guy said he can buy my sword. Boss, why don't I just sell it? Wouldn't it be safer for me?" Li Hao explained in a low voice, "I just thought about it. The other party might be a night patrol. If I sell the sword to the night patrolman, does that mean that I can lure the night patrolman into a duel with him? We can just sit back and watch the two tigers fight. I can also get a transaction fee. Selling swords." When Lu Long heard this, he was instantly enraged and growled in a low voice, "No. Do you lack money? Sell my ass." "Yes, boss. I want to ask if I can exchange it for some mysterious energy. I'm thinking that if I absorb more mysterious energy, I'll become stronger and have a higher chance of surviving. What's the point of changing? Lu Long was extremely furious. You're not allowed to exchange. Remember, you are now a member of the demon hunting squad, not a night patrolman. Furthermore, you are not sure of the other party's identity. Even if you sell your sword, you may still die. But I'll die if I don't sell it. Why don't I exchange for a few cubes of mysterious energy and improve myself first? Shut up. Lu Long was a little depressed. This guy was too stubborn. After some consideration, he sighed and spoke again. The team still has some mystical energy in storage. It's not that I don't want to give it to you, but I'm afraid that you'll suffer permanent damage if you absorb too much. All that's left is some elemental mysterious energy. How about this, before the rainy day, if you think you can handle it, I can give you 2 more units of elemental mysterious energy. You can't sell the sword. No matter how much mysterious energy you get, you won't be able to absorb it. Li Hao's eyes lit up. That was right. He knew that Lu Long wouldn't let him sell his sword. Otherwise, the night patrol would have directly intervened and he wouldn't have had anything to do with it. Risk was accompanied by opportunity. Lu Long wanted to become a super. Even though killing a super was dangerous, the other party did not care about that. He wanted to obtain more benefits. I knew it. Li Hao calculated for a moment. 2 parties were fine. As for whether there would be any problems with the mysterious attribute energy, he would know after absorbing it. Then. Okay. Thank you, boss. I won't sell it. I'm just worried about your safety. It might be safer if the night patrolman directly intervened. BDNVL.M, it's fine, as long as you understand. Lu Long felt a little more at ease and warned, don't expose yourself. If the other party is really a night patrolman, then our plan this time has a higher chance of success, and our safety is more guaranteed. Taking chestnuts from the fire is also something that we martial masters who pursue the extraordinary domain must do.